Howdy, guys. Welcome to Cliff Notes. This is the Challenge Double Agents, a recap of episode 1, week 1. I'm so excited to have a new season of the challenge here. Let's get right into it. All right, so first of all, let's talk about kind of the setup for the challenge this particular season. We've seen the house that they're at. I got to say, I like this house a whole lot better than I do last season when, for those of you who didn't see it, they were in a bunker in the Czech Republic, very Spartan. They had porta potties to use inside this bunker, so nothing fancy at all. So they are definitely upgrading this season, moving into this new house. Now, with that being said, instead of the Czech Republic, they're in Iceland, which is a cool place I'd love to visit. But in terms of doing challenges, outdoor challenges, it looks cold. I'm guessing there are going to be some challenges involving cold water, cold environments. I don't like the cold. I am afraid I would be miserable just with the environment itself. But I'm still looking for, they go to such exotic locations, and this season is no different. So props and cheers to both the country they're playing in this year and the house they're going to be living in. I think it's going to be fantastic. So let's talk about the cast before we start getting into the episode itself. There's no Johnny Bananas. How many seasons has Johnny been on the show? But we lose him this year. I'm okay with that. Johnny, he's such a dominant personality. Bananas, when he's in there, everything seems to be focused around him. So without him gone this season, I expect to see a little bit more interaction, a little bit more strategies from a lot of other people. So I'm okay with Bananas being gone every once in a while. We're going to see what happens without it. But even though Bananas is gone, doesn't mean we don't have a whole lot of people. We've got 30 people starting off in the challenge. Unlike Big Brother, where there were 16 of us, 30 people start off. A lot of folks to be eliminating throughout this season. But amongst those 30, there are a handful that I really in particular am going to be cheering for this season, I think. So let's start off. Boss Hogg's favorites. Who's he rooting for this season of the challenge? Well, first of all, I got to cheer for the Big Brother alums, right? And there's quite a few, and I'm going to be cheered for every single one of them. Fessy, Josh, KC, Amber from, she's season 16, I think. So we've got four Big Brother alums, and obviously they're my top choices. KC and Fessy in particular last season just almost won the entire thing. They're both going to be strong threats, I think, again this season. So let's hear it for the Big Brother alums. Who else? Nelson and Corey. I'm cheered for both those guys. Last season, Nelson took a bullet for Corey. He basically allowed himself to be voted out to give Corey a better chance to win the whole thing. These are just nice guys. They're loyal guys. I hope they continue to work together, and I'd love to see them do well this season. Jay originally was on Survivor. Jay was a newbie last season, and he got picked on. He got picked to go to the competition, the Elimination Arena, multiple times in the very beginning. He just kept winning over and over again, but finally the odds caught up to him and he got eliminated. I don't think he got a fair shake last season. He's a strong competitor. He's got a season under his belt. I think he's going to do well, and I hope he does. He's going to be fun to watch. Lolo Jones and Natalie Anderson. I'm looking forward to seeing both of those. They are both badasses. Lolo was on Celebrity Big Brother. She also was on a season of the challenge. It was pros versus players, coming as Olympic athletes. So she's got a little of experience with this game, but also Big Brother. And then Natalie Anderson was on Amazing Race, but really made her mark even more on Survivor. Both seasons that she was on there. They're both athletic. I think they're going to show the other women in this house a thing or two, so I'm looking forward to seeing them. CT, Wes, and Anissa. These are kind of the old players. I got to cheer for the old guys, right? I mean, I got to cheer for the old guys, and especially Anissa. No one gave her any credit last season. They all underestimated anything she was capable of, wondered why she was even there. So with that, I'd love to see her take it this season, or at least play a good game, make herself a threat, and get more fear in other players' eyes as they're trying to deal with her this season. And then finally, my long shot, I guess, my newbie that I don't know that much about, but I hope he does well because so far I've enjoyed watching him, is Leo. Leo's a wrestler from WWE. He doesn't look like your stereotypical wrestler, and yet he's strong. I think he's going to be a lot more of an athletic threat than anyone's maybe estimating. I think seems like he's got a good head on his shoulders just based on some of the conversations he's had. So I think he's going to kind of jump in and surprise a lot of people. I hope so. That's what I look for every season in the challenge. So again, just a handful of people. There's a whole lot more, but those are the people I think I'm going to be cheering for this particular season. Now, the big part, every year, it's not like Big Brother where every year you know what you're playing for. $500,000, there's one winner. We don't know inside the challenge from year to year how it's going to work. But this year, we've now learned from TJ, tells us in this first episode, the prize this year is going to be $1 million. Big Brother doesn't get $1 million. I think we need to have some discussions on that. But $1 million for the challenge winners. We still don't know if it's going to be one person that wins. Perhaps it could be $1 million, $500,000 for the top male, $500,000 for the top female. We certainly see that quite often as well. But who knows? But $1 million sure sounds like a nice, big, round number that ought to get everyone properly inspired and motivated. And as another, we start learning some of the twists this season. Just like last season, we again have skulls. Last year, I think they were red skulls. This year, they're gold skulls. But the idea is the same. You don't get to compete in the finale of the challenge and have a chance for that money unless you've won a skull. And the only way that you can win a skull is by earning it in the elimination arena. So if you're not willing to go down and compete and potentially be eliminated, you also can't get a skull and advance to the final. Now, the thing that's a little bit different from this last year compared to this year is this year, there are only 10 skulls available. If I recall last season, we didn't know exactly how many people would be allowed into the finale. This year, TJ's already said, there's only 10. That's it. If you don't get one of those 10 skulls, you're not competing in the finale. That means that no one is going to be able to sit back and let other people compete in the elimination arena. They're going to have to get in and earn that skull probably sooner rather than later. I think it's going to create a lot more strategy this season. I think you're going to see a lot more people volunteering for the elimination arena because 10 skulls is not that many compared to 30 people that are actually playing this game. And it made me wonder, you've got 30 people playing. If you have 10 arena elimination competitions, that's going to result in 10 eliminations, but it also is going to result in 10 people winning skulls. Now, with that being said, that means 10 gone, 10 with skulls. You've got 10 people left who may not make the elimination or make the final at the end just because they never competed in an elimination competition. You may have a couple of people as well who get put on to, put into the elimination arena after they already own a skull. So I'm not sure exactly how it's going to work, but what it tells me is there's going to be a lot of people towards the end without skulls with only a couple of eliminations left. And they're all going to be fighting and strategizing and politicizing to get picked for those last few competitions. It also makes me think that somewhere down the road, this first episode, we saw single elimination. One person went home, one person won a skull. Could it be that somewhere down the road, we may have a competition that involves, say, 2 duos, 4 people competing all at once? Maybe only one person gets a skull and 3 people go home. You may not have 1 and 1 the entire time. That may be the way they get rid of some of these extra people. But that means once you get to the point where there's one person that wins and several go home, your odds go down even less. Another reason that some of these players may want to start thinking about getting into the elimination arena as quickly as possible, while the odds are still a little bit more in their favor. We'll see. That's the great thing about the challenge. You don't know week to week exactly what's going to happen. There's so many twists involved. So we get to the first challenge. TJ welcomes everyone on the shores of a very cold-looking Icelandic shoreline, explains all the rules, some of the twists that we just talked about. But now they immediately get to the first challenge. And what is this? I'll call it King of the Hill, King of the Gravel Pile. We've got a big pile of gravel and sand, and at the top of it is a cylinder with multiple bands of colors across the cylinder. And each player has to look at that cylinder, memorize this color code, maybe 10, 12 colors, race back to their own personal little desk and put the same color codes in their kiosk using different colored wires, simulating a bomb. And so that's the objective. First person to do it advances or wins the competition. Now, a couple of things with that. First of all, it's not all 30 players at once. It's a woman's leg and it's a men's leg, and we see the women go first. It is a brutal competition. 15 people fighting over this cylinder at the top of the hill. Some of them, like Lolo Jones, she's an Olympic athlete. She's a hurdler. No one is surprised when she's the first one up that mountain. It looks like she takes just 2 or 3 steps and she's at the top. But that's only half the battle, because once you get up there, you've got to now look at the cylinder while a lot of other people are fighting with you to try to grab it. Eventually, we see it get ripped out of her hand. She gets tackled. At some point, the cylinder eventually makes it to the base of the hill. So you don't have to actually run up to the very top in order to look at the color codes, but certainly there's a lot of fighting trying to look at this cylinder and try to memorize these color codes. Now, one of the things I noticed from a strategy standpoint, you had some people rushing up that hill as quickly as possible, others waiting down below. But we also had some people like Nicole. Nicole, I think it's a pretty smart idea. She immediately tried to work with Lolo. Lolo was there with the cylinder. She was trying to get Lolo to holler out colors to her so she could enter them in her kiosk and win. I like the idea. I think it's a great strategy to have 2 people working together, someone calling out, someone else entering it like that. I think it gives you a much better chance to win the competitions. But on the other hand, doing that, all the other competitors hear you doing it, hear you working together. I think it also draws a lot of attention to yourself, which isn't necessarily a good thing when you're starting off this season. I think really, when you get down to it, I think the only people who really need to be fighting hard this week were the newbies and the past winners, the hardcore vets, the people who are considered the strong targets. With 30 people, the chances of you actually being picked to compete and to go home are pretty low, unless you already know that you're going to have a target on your back. And for so many seasons, we see newbies getting picked first. So again, if you're a newbie, do whatever it takes to win. Sometimes we see the really strong players getting picked early. So if you're one of those, probably do everything you can to win. But if you're somewhere in the middle of the pack, just lay low, make it look like you're playing hard. But I don't think winning is necessarily the most important thing based on the information that we have right now. So you may not want to call attention to yourself the way Nicole did if you're in that situation. But it is what it is, and it is an interesting strategy. But even with that cooperation between the 2 of those, the winner of this round is Anissa. Yeah, Anissa. She right off the bat, she's showing that she's fighting hard and that people maybe underestimated her. She got so much grief last season that she wins the very first challenge. So right now she's in the catbird seat. And now we move on to the guys. Again, 15 of the guys rushing up the hill, same rules, everything else. Probably the most fun part of this particular segment was watching Wes get hit in the face. CT pulled someone's shoe off, threw it behind him, didn't even realize that he hit Wes right in the face. Funny, they showed it over and over again. But beyond that, the fact that he was just waiting at the base of the hill instead of trying to fight with everyone to get up the top of the hill, it just shows that how smart I think he played that particular challenge. And he understands that he's a little older than the other ones. He necessarily can't compete on a pure athletic level. He's got to be a little smarter about the way he plays the game. Sitting down at the base of the hill, he did that. But lots of fighting going on. And at the end, Fessy wins. Fessy is a strong player. He is going to be a threat from day one to the very end, I think, of this season, because obviously he's very athletic, but Fessy's also, I think, a lot smarter than a lot of the people inside that house. So I think Fessy's going to do great. But Fessy wins. So now we've got Anissa and Fessy as the 2 winners in week number 1. So now we get to not the biggest surprise of the night, probably, but certainly one of the biggest surprises. Everyone this season is going to be playing in man-woman pairs. You're not playing individually. You're going to play with a partner. And since Anissa solved the puzzle a little bit faster than Fessy, she gets to pick her partner first. And she chooses Fessy. And Fessy immediately to the camera is saying, yeah, she's great and everything, but she just doesn't have the endurance that you need. Probably not who I really want to be partnered with, but we'll see what happens. He didn't want it, but he didn't have a choice either. Anissa picks him. And at that point, then the rest of the competitors are told that y'all are all playing in partners too, so calmly take turns picking your partners. Nah, it doesn't work like that in the challenge. TJ says, find your partner. That's it. Line back up, find your partner. No rules other than y'all all need to be partnered up at the end of this. So the free-for-all is on, and everyone's rushing around trying to get their best partner. They don't have a lot of time to strategize or think about it, but we do see a little strategies occurring. We see Cam approach CT immediately and say, hey, CT, you and me, let's partner up. And CT, I think he could have said, I already made a promise to someone else or something. Instead, he just kind of stares at her, looks around, and then just walks off without really responding. And he makes her mad. And CT is now a target for Cam. She's not happy that he rejected her, but she tried. That didn't work out. But then eventually Cam and Leroy, who are, I think they're dating. I think it's secretly. They're dating, and they're a couple, partners together. But then they see that Josh and KC are also partnered together. And rather than having people together like that are so tight with one another, I think they make a brilliant move. They decide to switch partners so that Leroy and KC are together, Josh and Cam are together. Now they've got two teams that are going to be forced to work together because they're basically, they've created their own alliance. I think that's going to work well for the both of them. So we have those two formed together. And I think it's a great move. Now, the strong teams, in my opinion, once everything falls out and we see who's aligned with who, I think the two strongest teams, CT and Ashley, are huge. Both strong competitors. They've both won in the past. And then we have Wes and Natalie. I think it was smart of Wes to latch on to Natalie. He understands, obviously, what a strong athletic player she's going to be. I think she could benefit from some of his strategy talk. All that being said, however, these are two really strong teams, and we're going to see later in the episode just how dangerous it is if you have a team that seems to stand out so much above everyone else. We'll see what happens with that. So now we have Aneesa and Fessy as the winners. As a result, they can't be nominated for the Elimination Arena this week. Instead, they're going to get to pick one half of the duo that competes to see who goes home. The other half is going to be picked by all of the rest of the competitors, the house guest. So we head on to the voting, the elimination. And with a little bit of discussion, campaigning going on, it turns out that the house guests have voted for the duo of CT and Ashley to be fighting in week one to see if they're going to be eliminated, sent out of the house. CT seemed to anticipate this. He was walking around talking to everyone, trying to figure out what was going on. No one really say. They all say, I don't know yet. No one's really said your name and all that. They're all lying to his face. But he expects it to happen or thinks it could happen. And sure enough, it does. Now, part of the reason we've seen in the past, it surprised me a little bit. We've seen in the past the newbies tend to get picked first. The people who maybe don't understand the game, they don't have the built-in alliances from past seasons. That doesn't happen this year. And I think part of the reason it doesn't happen this year is because the votes are not cast sitting around in a room in front of everyone else. The votes are secret instead. Every person goes in individually and casts a vote on which duo they want to send home. So with the secret vote, it means that there's not the repercussions. There's not blood on your hands. There's not as much fear about picking a strong target and then having them find out and come back after you. So there's more reason that you would pick someone that's a stronger threat as a result, because the votes are cast in secret. Or so we think. But what it turns out that they're not so much a secret, because later Aneesa and Fessy get to go to the special room and they see who cast votes for CT and Ashley, for the team that's been evicted. So they're going to know who's picked them and who hasn't. As it turns out, this particular week, I think 24 house guests picked CT and Ashley. So it really was just an overwhelming majority that selected these two to go forward. But in other weeks where maybe it's a little bit more evenly balanced, knowing who voted for the person who didn't, that's a huge weapon that the winning duo is going to be able to control. It looks like this week, Aneesa and Fessy probably aren't going to say anything. They're not going to let anyone know that they even know who voted for CT and Ashley. I think it's smart just to keep that information hidden for now. But again, these secret votes, not really so secret. So we'll see what the effects are of that later on down the road. So now we get to the Elimination Arena itself. We've got CT and Ashley as one duo. The other duo, Aneesa and Fessy, get to decide. They actually can pick themselves to go in and compete, which isn't a bad idea if you want a skull, but they don't do it, and I don't blame them. Not when you're competing against CT and Ashley, some strong athletes. And so they say, no, we're just going to sit tight this week. We're going to pick someone else instead. And the someone else that they pick, Anissa's not messing around this week. She immediately says, "Hey, I'm here to play. I'm here to win this thing. So let's put another strong team up against CT and Ashley. Wes and Natalie, why don't you come on down?" So she picked the other strong duo that I'd noticed in the beginning. And Fessy says, "Yeah, I'm not going to, I'm supporting Anissa. If that's what she wants, go for it." So now we've got CT and Ashley matched up against Wes and Natalie. 4 strong players, I absolutely believe. But we now find out that it's women's elimination week, which means it's either Natalie or Ashley that's going home. Wes and CT are both safe just because it's the women's elimination. That's bad news for the rest of the players, I think, because now you got two guys that are a little upset that are going to be on the warpath against everyone who they feel slighted them and put them in the arena to begin with. So I expect next week to see a whole lot of people a little bit worried with Wes and CT. And I'm wondering if the two of them are going to start working together, realizing that they're kind of maybe on the outs or a little bit of a minority compared to everyone else. But the competition itself, it's, again, Natalie versus Ashley. And the competition is a cool competition. 2 I-beam steel beams across the arena. Ashley and Natalie are both hanging from it. Their arms and their ankles are bound with straps that hang over the pole. And they have to inch their way down the pole or down the beam and then come back the opposite direction, kind of like inchworms hanging upside down. Whoever does it the fastest stays alive. The loser goes home. They fight. It's a good competition, but at the end, Natalie just, she won it. She won it by quite a bit. Ashley just couldn't keep up with her. So we find out that Ashley has been eliminated week 1. I'm okay with that. I mean, Ashley's a strong competitor, but I am perfectly fine with Ashley going home. For one reason, because I really want to see how Natalie competes this season. And as I said, I'm cheering her on. And the other reason is that I'm still just a little bit peeved at Ashley because a few seasons back, she had a chance to split $1 million prize with her partner. Instead, she said, "Nah, I'm keeping it all," and sent her partner home without a dollar. So I don't know. That just kind of peeved me. And you do what you have to do. But I'm okay. The fact that she's already won in a past season makes me happy to see her, fine with her going home in week 1. She wasn't real happy to go home, but it's the way it works out. And I'm glad Natalie stays alive. But it's not over just yet. No, because we have one final twist to talk about. As the victor, Natalie now has a skull. If she can survive until finale, she has her ticket into the finale. But she also has the right now to stick with her current partner, Wes, or she can pick CT to replace Wes as her new partner, or she can pick any other guy that's in the competition except for Fessy. He's protected because he won. She can pick anyone else she wants as her new partner. So there's a lot of strategy at play with her. Now, knowing that Wes is going to be a target just based on this first week that he got called out so quick, is Natalie going to switch away from him? Yeah, they show her talking and saying, I'm not sure that I want to keep him. And, he got so much attention paid to him. My personal opinion, I kind of doubt it. I think she may stick with Wes. I think that she'll recognize that even though he's a little bit of a lightning bolt, he also is a competitor. He understands the strategy part of it. She should be safe next week because I assume it's going to be a men's competition or men's elimination. I think she may stick with him, but there's a lot of strategy coming into play that she'll have to think about before making that decision. The other question I have is, what happens to CT now that he doesn't have a partner? He mentions in the show, do I have to go home now? Nah, I doubt that. But I have a feeling he's probably going to get partnered up with whatever woman whose male partner gets eliminated next week. They'll end up back together. I assume that's the case. But will he be able to compete next week since he doesn't have a partner for the competitions, or is that his penalty? He just has to sit by the side and doesn't have any chance of winning. I don't know. We're going to find out as we progress through the show itself. But kind of as a final wrap up, as we look at the way all these twists come into play at the end. No one really wanted to compete this first week because of fear of elimination. No one wants to be the first person gone, whether it's The Challenge, Big Brother, Survivor, any of these other reality shows. You don't want to be the first one out the door. So no one was willing to go in and compete and risk that elimination. But I think that's all going to change very, very quickly within the first couple of weeks. I think within the next couple of weeks, teams are going to be begging to get into the arena as they realize how few gold skulls exist as opposed to how many people are actually in that game. So it's going to make it interesting, because then it suddenly comes down to trying to make sure that you maybe vote for a very weak person to go into the arena if you won the duo and you want to try to go up against them, or try to make sure everyone votes for you if you feel like the winners, the double agents who won that particular competition, maybe aren't the strongest in play. It's just going to be a lot of campaigning, a lot of politicking, as you try to figure out the best time to get in and do your competition and get that treasured gold skull. So I'm looking forward to the season. It's going to be a whole lot of fun. Guys, y'all have a fantastic week. I will be back next week. We'll talk about episode 2. We'll have a lot more information about exactly how some of these twists work. But so far, episode 1, I loved it. It's going to be a great season. Cheers, guys. Y'all have a great one. Bye.